Hello everybody, lifespan development. Today under this we are going to deal with the topic adolescent development. The objective of this lesson is to understand the puberty, characteristics and body changes that takes place during this stage of development, and the second objective is to understand the effect of puberty on the attitude and behavior of adolescents. Adolescence. Adolescence is a period of life between the onset of puberty and full commitment to an adult social role such as a worker, a parent or a citizen. It is a period known for the formation of personal and social identity. We can divide adolescent period into three parts. The early adolescence, that is from 9 to 13 years of age, which we call as pre-teenage. The middle adolescence, that is from 13 to 15 years of age, and late adolescence from 15 to 18 years of age. The adolescents unconsciously explore questions like who am I or who do I want to become. Like toddlers, adolescents must explore and test limits and become autonomous and commit to an identity or a sense of self. Different roles, behaviors and ideologies must be tried out to select an identity for an adolescent. Role confusion and inability to choose a vocation can result from a failure to achieve a sense of identity through, for example, friends. Puberty is a period in the developmental span when the child changes from an asexual to a sexual being. It is a stage in the development during which the reproductive capacity is attained. It is accompanied by changes in somatic growth and psychological perspective. Puberty is derived from the Latin word pubertas, which means the age of manhood. It refers to physical rather than behavioral changes which occurs when the individual becomes sexually mature and is capable of producing the offsprings. Most primitive people have for centuries recognized puberty as a time of importance in the lifespan of every individual. It is customary for them to observe various rites in recognition of the fact that as their body is changing, the children are emerging from childhood to maturity. So, after having understood what is the period of adolescence and what is pubertas, let us now see what are the developmental tasks associated with this stage of development. Developmental tasks of adolescence. The first developmental task is achieving new and more mature relationship with age mates of both genders. And the second task is to achieve a masculine or feminine social role. Then the third developmental task is accepting one's physique and using the body effectively. The fourth developmental task is achieving emotional independence of the parents and other adults which are significant in their life. And the fifth developmental task is preparing for marriage and family life, and also preparing for economic careers. The sixth important developmental task is acquiring a set of values and an ethical system as a guide to behavior and developing an ideology. The seventh developmental task is desiring and achieving socially responsible behavior. These are the developmental tasks for the adolescents they have to achieve before they complete this stage of development. Puberty is a unique and distinctive period, and it is characterized by certain developmental changes that occur at no other time in the lifespan. Some of the important characteristics are: puberty is a overlapping period. That means puberty must be regarded as an overlapping period because it encompasses the closing years of the childhood and the beginning years of the adolescence. Until they are sexually mature, the children are known as pubescents or pubescent children. After they are sexually mature, they are called as the young adolescents. Then the second characteristics of this puberty is a very short period. Considering the many and extensive changes that takes place inside the body as well as externally, puberty is relatively very short, lasting from 2 to 4 years only. The children who pass through the puberty in 2 years or less are regarded as rapid maturers, while those who require 3 to 4 years to complete this transformation into adults are regarded as the slow maturers. Girls as a group tend to mature more rapidly than boys as a group, but there are marked variation within each group. Then the next characteristic of the puberty stage is it can be divided into stages. In spite of the fact that puberty is relatively very short period in the lifespan, it is customary to divide the puberty into 3 stages, that is prepubescent stage, the pubescent stage and the post-pubescent stage. When each of these stages normally occur, they are having separate characteristics for each stage. Now let us see what are the stages of puberty. Prepubescent stage. This stage overlaps the closing years of the childhood when the child is recorded as a prepubescent, the one who is no longer a child but yet is not an adolescent. During the prepubescent stage or the maturing stage, the secondary sex characteristics begin to appear, but the reproductive organs are not yet fully developed. Pubescent stage. This stage occurs at the dividing line between the childhood and the adolescence, the time when the criteria of sexual maturity appears, that is menarche in girls and the first nocturnal emission in the boys. Then the third puberty stage is the post-pubescent stage. This stage overlaps the first year of the adolescence. During the stage, the secondary sex characteristics, they become well established or well developed and the sex organs begin to function in a mature way. Another important characteristics of this puberty stage is that puberty is the time of rapid growth and change. It is the period in the lifespan that are characterized by the rapid growth and marked changes in body proportions. The other is the prenatal period, during which we have seen there is a rapid growth. So, when the changes or rapid growth happens, we call in the first year of life as a baby growth spurt. The rapid growth and development that occurs during the puberty are generally referred to as adolescent growth spurt. More correctly, we can say it as a puberty growth spurt because it precedes slightly or occurs simultaneously with other changes of puberty. This growth spurt lasts for a year or two before the children become sexually mature and continue for the period of 6 months to 1 year afterwards. Thus, the entire period of rapid growth lasts for about 3 years and it is slightly longer than the baby growth spurt, which lasts for a year and a half. The rapid changes that takes place during the puberty leads to confusion, the feeling of inadequacy and insecurity, and in some cases it may also cause unfavorable behavior. The next and the most important characteristics of this stage is puberty is a negative phase. Many years ago, Charlotte Buller labeled puberty as negative phase. The term phase is a period of a short duration. Negative suggests that the individual takes an anti-attitude towards the life or seem to be losing some of the good qualities previously developed. There is evidence that negative attitudes and behaviors are characteristics mainly the early part of the puberty. And the worst of the negative phase is that when the individuals become sexually mature, there is evidence in the behavioral characteristics of the negative phase of the puberty, and it is more pronounced in girls than the boys. The next important characteristic is the puberty occurs at a variable age. Puberty can occur at any time between the ages of 9 to 19 years. However, the average girl in Indian culture of today can become sexually mature at 13 years and the average a boy a year later. There are also variations in the amount of time needed to complete the transformation of puberty. These range from 2 to 4 years, with girls on average requiring slightly less time than the boys. The variations in the age at which puberty occurs and in the time needed to complete the transformation process of the puberty create many personal as well as social problems for both boys and girls. It is the variation in the time of puberty rather than the changes associated with it make it one of the most difficult stages of development, even though it is of a shortest period in the lifespan. Criteria the most often used to determine the onset of puberty and pinpoint a particular stage of puberty that the child has reached, that is the menarche, nocturnal emissions, evidences from the chemical analysis of the urine and X-ray of the bone development. Menarche or the first menstruation cycle commonly used as a criteria for sexual maturity of the girls, but it is neither the first or the last physical change that occurs during the puberty. When menarche occurs, the sex organs or the secondary sex characteristics have all started to develop, but none of them have reached the state of maturity. Menarche is more correctly considered as a midpoint in puberty. Let us look at the conditions responsible for puberty changes. First role or responsibility is the role of the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland produces two hormones, that is the growth hormone, which is influential in determining the individual size, and the gonadotropic hormone, which stimulates the gonads to increased activity. Just before puberty, there is a gradual increase in the amount of gonadotropic hormone and increased sensitivity of gonads to this hormone, which initiates the puberty changes in the individuals. Role of the gonads. With the growth and development of gonads, the sex organs, the primary sex characteristics increase in size and they become functionally mature, and the secondary sex characteristics such as the pubic hair develop. Interaction of the pituitary gland and the gonads is another important role which plays for the puberty changes taking place. These hormones produced by gonads, which have been stimulated by the gonadotropic hormone produced by the pituitary gland, act in turn on this gland and cause a gradual reduction in the amount of the growth hormone produced, thus stopping the growth process. The interaction between the gonadotropic hormone and gonads continue throughout the individual's reproductive life, gradually decreasing as the woman approaches the menopause and the men approach the climacteric. So, let us see what are the body changes at puberty. During puberty, as we have already known, the growth spurt occurs. The four important physical changes which transform the child body into that of an adult is the changes in the body size, changes in the body proportion, the development of primary sex characteristics and the development of secondary sex characteristics. Let us see what are the changes in the body size. The first major physical change at puberty is the change in the body size, that is in terms of height and weight. Among the girls, the average annual increase in their year in the preceding menarche is 3 inches, though 5 to 6 inches increase is also not unusual. 2 years preceding menarche, the average increase is 2.5 inches, making a total increase of 5.5 inches in 2 years preceding the menarche. After menarche, the rate of the growth slows down to about 1 inch a year and comes to a standstill around 18 years of age. For boys, the onset of period of rapid growth in height comes at an average age of 12.8 years and ends at an average age of 15.3 years, with a peak occurring at the 14 years. The greatest increase in height comes in the year following the onset of puberty. After that, the growth deaccelerates and continues at a slower rate until the age of 20 to 21. Because of this longer growth period, boys achieve a greater height by the time they are mature than the girls. The weight gain during the puberty comes not only from the increase in fat, but also from the increase in the bone and muscle tissue. Thus, even though the pubescent boys and girls gain weight rapidly, girls experience the greatest weight gain just before and just after menarche. Only slight increases in weight occurs after that. But for boys, the maximum gain in the weight comes a year later than of the girls and reaches its peak at 16 years of age, after which the gain is very small. It is not uncommon for both girls and boys to go through a fat period during the puberty. Because of the ages of 10 and 12 at or near the onset of growth spurt, the children tend to accumulate fat on the abdomen, around the hips and thighs and cheeks, necks and jaw area. This fat usually disappears after the pubertal maturing and rapid growth in height, and well started, though it remains for 2 years during the early part of puberty. So, let us see what are the changes in body proportions. The second major physical change at puberty is the change of the body proportions. Certain areas of the body which early years of life were proportionately much too small now become proportionally too big because they reach their mature size soon than other areas. This is particularly apparent in nose, the feet, hands. It is not until the later part of adolescence that the body attains the adult proportions in all areas, although the most pronounced changes takes place before the puberty is over. The thin, long trunk of the older children begin to broaden at hips and shoulder, and waistline develops. This appears high at first because the legs grow proportionately more than the trunks. Boys who mature early usually have broader hips than the boys who mature late. Girls who mature late have slightly broader hips than the early maturing girls. Just before puberty, the legs are disproportionately long in relation to the trunk and continue to be so until the child is approximately 15 years of age. Much same pattern occurs in the arms also, whose growth precedes a rapid growth spurt in the trunk, making them seem disproportionately long. As is the true for the leg growth, the growth of arms is affected by the age of maturing. The early maturers tend to have shorter arms, while the late maturers, just as the early maturers is short leg than the late maturers. Not until the growth of arms and legs is nearly complete do they seem to be in right proportions to the hand and feet, both of which reach their mature size early in puberty. The third major physical change that takes place during the growth and development is the primary sex characteristics and the sex organs. In case of the males, the gonad or the testes, which are located in scrotum outside the body, are proportionately 10% of their mature size, and there is a rapid growth for a year or two, after which the growth slows down. The secondary sex characteristics, which are the physical change that occurs, are like a distinguishing for males and females, which make the member of one sex appealing to the member of the other. They are unrelated to reproduction, though indirectly they are related to the males appealing to females and vice versa. That is why they are called as the secondary sex characteristics. So, let us see what are the changes that takes place during these characteristics. For boys, hair. The facial hair which appears is completed in growth, so does the body hair appearance also. At first, all the hair is scanty and lightly pigmented and fine in texture. Later, it becomes dark and more luxuriant and slightly kinky. The skin becomes coarser and less transparent and sallow in color, and pores enlarge. Glands. The sebaceous glands or the oil producing glands in the skin enlarge and become more active. That is the reason mostly this is the age where acne or pimples occur. The apocrine gland in the armpits start to function and perspiration increases as the puberty progresses. Muscles. The muscles increase markedly in size and strength, thus giving a shape to the arms, legs and shoulder. Voice. Voice change begins after some time, and the voice first becomes husky and later drops in pitch, increase in volume and acquires a pleasanter tone. The voice breaks are common when maturing is rapid. Then for girls, the hips become wider and rounder. Shortly after the hips have enlarged, the breast begins to develop and enlarge. Then the hair appears in the breast region, the hip region. Axillary hair begin to appear after the menarche, so does the facial hair also. The body hair appears on the limbs late in puberty stage. The skin becomes much coarser, thicker and slightly sallow, and other pores of the skin enlarge. Glands, like in boys, girls also, the sebaceous glands and apocrine glands become more active, and the clogging of the sebaceous gland can cause the pimples or acne. Muscles. The muscles for the girls increase in size and strength, especially in the middle of the puberty stage and towards end, thus giving a shape to the shoulders, arms and legs. Voice. Voice in girls become more fuller, more melodious, and huskiness or breaks in the voice are very rare among the girls. Now, after having understood what are the changes that takes place, let us see how these changes of puberty is affecting the attitude and behavior. Desire for isolation. When puberty begins, the children usually withdrawn from peers and family activities, and they often quarrel with the family members and peers, and they spend much time daydreaming, and they are misunderstood, that they are mistreated and are experimenting with other things. The second attitude or behavioral change that occurs is boredom. Pubescent children are bored when they play, which they formerly enjoyed with the school activities and with the life in general. As a result, they do little work as they can, and they develop the habit of underachieving. In coordination, the rapid uneven growth affects the habitual patterns of coordination, and the pubescent child is clumsy, awkward for a time. As the growth slows down, the coordination and gradually improves. The social antagonism. The pubescent child is often uncooperative, disagreeable and antagonistic. And the next important characteristics or attitude behavior which can be seen in this puberty stage is heightened emotionality, moodiness, sulkiness, temper outbursts, and a tendency to cry at the slightest provocation or the characteristics of early part of the puberty. It is a time for worrying, for anxieties, for irritability, for depression and negative moods. These are all very common during this period of lifespan. Loss of self-confidence. The pubescent child, formerly so self-assured, becomes lacking in self-confidence. Fear of failure. This is because of the lowered physical resistance and partly to the constant criticism of adults and peers. Many boys and girls emerge from puberty with foundations of inferiority complex. The next one is the excessive modesty. The bodily changes that takes place during the puberty cause the child to become more excessively modest for the fear, and the others may notice all these changes and comment them unfavorably. So, these are some of the changes that occur in the behavior and attitude of the puberty growth spurt, because of which this behavior is exhibited by the children. Like every important period during the lifespan, adolescence also has certain characteristics that distinguish it from the period of preceding and the periods that will follow it. As we have seen, adolescence is a very important period because lot of bodily changes are occurring and they are affecting the psychological behavior of the child. Adolescence period is important for both physical development and also for the psychological development taking place in the adolescent. And adolescence is a transitional period. Transition does not mean a break or a change from what has gone before, but it is rather a passage from one stage of development to another. Then adolescence is a period of change. The rate of change in the attitudes and behavior during the adolescence parallels to the rate of the physical change. During the early adolescence, physical changes are rapid and changes in behavior and attitude are also rapid. As the physical change slows down, so the attitudinal behavioral change also slows down and comes back to normalcy. And the next is that adolescents are ambivalent about these changes. While they want and demand independence, they are often dread of the responsibilities that go with the independence and question their ability to cope up with these responsibilities. So, today we have understood the importance of this puberty stage or the stage for adolescence, and we have understood what are the characteristics and what are the changes that occurs, physical changes as well as the psychological changes. And also we have understood what are the hormones which is affecting these puberty changes taking place, and also we have understood the attitude or the behavior that is forming in the adolescence because of all these changes. Hope you have understood the lesson. Thank you.